Howdy, everybody, and welcome into Jason's Lightbox. You might ask yourself, why so quick today, Jason? Why are you in such a panic? Why did we have to hop right into the Lightbox? It's because I'm literally 2 days behind packing for the antique show in Columbus, Ohio. Yes, I will be at the Don Scott Antique Show the day after Christmas, which is technically Black Friday. I spend every Black Friday down in Columbus at the Don Scott Antique Show, and I have been down there for, I think this is my 21st year. So I know I'll see many of you down there. I can hardly wait. I'm super excited. And thank you so much for joining into this video. I've been delaying this video for approximately 8 months, and the reason why is I cannot possibly get all the information into one video. Now, I want to talk about Art Deco today, and specifically Art Deco jewelry. The way I wanted to handle this is, like all my other videos, I wanted to show you examples out of my personal collection rather than pulling information from Google or online or eBay listings. Anybody can do that. I live with these things. They stay with me. I examine them. I'll show you the front and the back of everything in all of my videos. I just do things different than other channels. I don't want to lecture you on a time period or a material or a design aesthetic. As an artist, I find it very difficult to find the right human words. So a lot of times I show you the examples that I want to talk about. Today is no exception to that rule. So let's be clear on the Art Deco time period. It was very much so in full swing by 1920 through around 1930. It was also known as the Machine Age, the Industrial Age. The roots to the Art Deco time period, a lot of people don't talk about the fact that a time period isn't like a light switch. A lot of people like switch it on and switch it off and say it started in 1920 and it was done by 1930. That's not true. As a jewelry historian, we know that time periods overlap and there's grace periods. And for those that don't realize it or talk about it, they're slightly out to lunch. I've always known Art Deco to have started, in full swing by the 1920s, but they were looking back to around 1910, 1915. By 1918, many things had changed. And again, you have to think about, it was different in Great Britain than it was in America. It was different in Germany. It was different in Paris, France. All the different, we have to have a little bit of grace is what I'm saying. I'll show you some pieces today from Austria. I'll show you some pieces from Germany. I'll show you some pieces from America. And I'll also show you an incredibly important French bracelet and French brooch at the end of this, so please stay tuned. Art Deco was basically known for very stylized geometric shapes and also bold color choices, very streamlined, very angular, almost, I've said before, heavy-handed. I've considered it slightly clumsy from time to time. The distillation of form and shape was a nod to the coming modernist movement, if you will. So Art Deco, very masculine, very bold. We're looking at a necklace here from right around 1910, 1915. Notice that this is quite a transitional piece. The color choice, very much so Art Deco. The style, that kind of distillation of form with that angular, almost grilled-like enamel, marcasites, opal, and then on the opposite side, chrysoprase and also marcasite with enamel. So I ask you, look at the materials used. Look at the way things are constructed. So this necklace could read as Art Deco, but it also looks a little Edwardian to some people. It also looks Vienna secessionist. So you've got to think about the Vienna secession movement. Not too many people talk about that movement. Not too many people do 2 videos on that. It's a very short-lived time period and a very short-lived design aesthetic, and it's very difficult to find examples of that. This is a classic example of what would be considered Vienna Secessionist, or you should say Secession era jewelry, but it does still read as Art Deco because of that bold and angular enameling on there. Look at the way the necklace opens from the front. So that clasp is there, and then you pull this down and that opens, it slides open from the front to get that long kind of lariat style necklace on. A single drop lariat. Most lariats have, 2 uneven drops. This one just has 1 drop pendant, and then that beautiful fringe. The stones on the necklace you would think are gemstones. Those are actually, let's make sure I'm telling you correctly. I think those might be glass. Let me look here really quick. No, those actually, I'm going to have to take a closer look, but those might be actual gemstones and frosted rock crystal. I'll take a look at that closer, and we'll be bringing this one back on. I didn't want to talk about Secession jewelry, but I wanted to show the nod to the coming Art Deco time period. Notice how streamlined that is becoming. And then we get into this, which is a classic Art Deco necklace. I don't want to spend too long on the classic versions, but what I wanted to show you is angular cut stones, black onyx and marcasite and sterling silver. Classic example of Art Deco. Notice how angular and how simple that bold and streamlined, beautiful handmade sterling silver chain is. Then you come up to the box clasp, all inset with marcasite stones. Classic Art Deco all the way. Probably right at the height of 1925 on this one because it's so classic Deco. I wouldn't want to put it any earlier, and I most certainly wouldn't want to say after 1930. Absolutely not. So that circa dating again gets us in between 1920 and 1930 at approximately 1925 for that, and it's such a beautiful, bold, strong line. Very simplistic, distilled down, very angular, very bold. Let that be a classic example of highly produced and commercial Art Deco jewelry. That's not what we're going to get into in the coming pieces, so just stay tuned. I wanted to show you true artistry in Art Deco. Notice the kind of simplistic chain here. This one is slightly earlier than this one. Notice that this one has the oval stones. There's some more foliate scrolls and some petal-like forms, but then the distillation of this isn't quite as angular as this. I would put this one slightly earlier. This one I've always thought was German. I'll do some research on the origin and we'll bring this back in future videos. But look how much more the nod to Edwardian this is. It's not as bold and angular. It's a little bit more feminine with those filigree links and that, again, that ball on the clasp always makes us think of 1900 to 1915. They were still using the clasps in 1918, 1920. They didn't just throw them away. If a jeweler had a box full of clasps from 1900, they'd be still using them in the 20s. It's not like they threw them away or, melted them down and made other clasps, but the marcasite and the gemstones in this, a very beautiful example. But you can see between the 3 of them, very much so, Secession era here, Art Deco, very strong Deco, and then slightly older in this one, not as Art Deco. Do you understand when you see the 3 of them as kind of a side-by-side comparison? Let's clear those out and let's make a little bit more, shall you say, let me show you this, but as I show you this brooch, I also want to show you a book that I'm going to refer to. This is a classic Art Deco brooch. Marcasite and all glass enamel. There is the counter enamel on the back of it, but that is absolutely Art Deco. There's no denying it. That is absolutely Art Deco. I would say mid-20s to right around 1930 on that. The reason I brought that on is, again, that's something you can find. That's easily accessible. Let me show you the book that I also wanted to talk about because we also always have to have a Jason book review, right? It's a thing. So Jewelry Antiques Checklist by Stephen Giles. I've mentioned this before. It's a Miller's Guide, and you know how much I love the Miller's book. And hopefully, maybe the publisher is watching my videos, and they'll send me some free samples of their new price guide. So we open this up, and on the inside, it gives a great deal of information for a checklist of what to look for Art Deco rings, what to look for modern rings. And they break this down by rings, pendants, pins, necklaces. It's very user-friendly. There's the Art Deco earrings. And just before Deco, what do we see? We see more Deco earrings, but then we see Edwardian and Art Nouveau. Someone would confuse those for Art Deco, and I would say, no, those are Edwardian. The time periods are so close together, and that there is that gray area overlap, you know? We have to remember that and have a little bit of grace amongst each other to not constantly want to correct each other. You know, there is some sense of overlap in these designs. Let's look at the Art Deco brooch, Art Deco pin one. There we go. So there's some of the examples of Art Deco clips. This looks so much more 1940s to me. So would I fight with that and say that's not Deco? I would say that it's late Deco into the retro time period. But when I look at this one, I say, oh, that's 100% Art Deco. There's no denying that that's Art Deco. You know, you might say, well, this is all foliate and scrolled and that looks Art Nouveau. The jade piece could have been much, much earlier, but mounted in platinum and diamonds that says, hello, I'm Art Deco. So you'll get more familiar with the design aesthetics as you go. The reason I open this book, and there is a slight, I believe there's a slight glitch in the book. I don't think that this pendant is by Emile. I don't think so. I just don't think so. And there's further information to document that we now know that that pendant is not supposed to be by that artist. But I'll show you this in just a second. We'll come back to this in a minute, so remember that. But this book is very helpful for the checklist, and then in each section, it shows you what to look for in those different things, like the materials. There's the questions it asks, you know, for Deco, is the design either geometric, abstract, oriental, or African in inspiration? Does the pendant incorporate semi-precious materials or enamel? If the piece is gem set, are the stones cut in unusual shapes and correctly cut for the period? Is the emphasis on the design of the setting rather than the individual gemstones? And is the pendant mounted in gold, platinum, or silver? Those are very important to consider when you're considering Art Deco. It also talks about the different makers and a couple more examples, and another example here of, I believe, Theodore Farner. Yes, that's Theodore Farner. Anytime you get around some of these famous makers, you know when you're in their presence of both their craft and their ability to transcend materials. But this is a classic Art Deco brooch, missing a whole bunch of marcasites, but I kept this for a good example of Art Deco jewelry. So we'll put that away. Also, let me see here. Oh, I almost got confused and brought this other piece on. I bought a piece the other day, and I didn't want to show it quite yet. I think I've had this pendant watch on my channel before, and I'm not sure, but I think I did. This is classic Art Deco. This is all glass enamel, and it's a ball pendant watch. And there's the working watch. Look how small that is. Smaller than a dime. Can you imagine making a mechanism that small? Look, it's the size of my thumbnail. It's so small, and it's a running watch. So when you wind it here, the works are inside, and they're all miniature. But look at that for a ball pendant watch. And it's on this original kind of slide chain with that little slide that goes up and down, and the silver hook there. And it's so lovely because look how bold this is. This says, I am 100% Art Deco. Bold, geometric. Look at the bold colors. Isn't that what I just said a few minutes ago? Bold coloration, bright green, bright blue in these almost concentric rings of enamel. And to have the enamel in that good a condition, these watches are always beat up because look, the cord is so long around the neck. Goes all the way around the neck and is so long. This would swing and sway and hit things. And that's glass on metal. Very fugitive surface. Very prone to breaking and getting chips. But that's an Art Deco pendant watch. So remember that for Art Deco. And you know, I don't bring on very many watches, but I think I'm going to start to do some more of the watches. I've always bought a watch based on artistry, design, skill. I never bought a watch as a watch. I always wanted to make it look like jewelry. I always wanted it to be jewelry, not just a watch. I'm not a fan of just watches. Let's zoom in on these two so I can kind of just let them sit there for a minute. So when I talk about Deco design and I talk about what Deco reads as, everyone would say both of these rings are Art Deco. There would be no denying that they wouldn't think that these are Art Deco. My box is so dirty today. I know why. I know exactly why. Look, I'm going to put the rings over the dust. So this ring and this ring are Deco inspired. These rings are not, in fact, period pieces from the Art Deco time period. This ring on the left is from the late 1950s, early 1960s. It is diamonds in 18 karat gold, and it's such the dazzler and so beautiful. I had to bring this on as a classic example of Art Deco design. This is also a Deco design, and I had this ring made for me when my dog Onyx passed away. It has a very large diamond in the top, which is bezel set, an onyx ball, and then these high shoulders of 13 diamonds on each side, set in, I think that one is 14 karat. It's either 14 karat or 18 karat white gold. And of course, I always, I turn the video on and I can't remember the designer's name. It's Michael, and I forget Michael's last name. I'll have to ask my mom because she got a ring designed by him too. We met him at the International Jewelry Exposition in Cleveland, and he was a delight. He was an amazing man. So I had this made for myself, but very much so in a Deco design. I bring this on to show you that everything that looks Art Deco isn't, so be careful, because there's a lot of reproduction and a lot of inspiration. Not direct reproduction, but inspiration or inspired by. But I always loved that ring, and I wear it over here on my ring finger. So there you go. So that is incredible for Art Deco inspired. And I am getting a phone call on my phone I've been waiting for 3 days. And it is a collection that I saw, I think, about 7 months ago. And they weren't ready to sell it, but maybe today's that day. Boy, I hope so. And I am so excited about the Don Scott Antique Show. And I can hardly wait to do my haul video of what I find there, because last year I did my haul video from there, and oh, the things I found were fantastic. This is 18 karat gold. And again, a Deco design, but you can tell that the craft and the way this is put together is definitely late 50s, early 1960s. Really great craft, and those diamonds are so clean and so clear, and I love the directionalness of this. But remember, very geometric, very streamlined, very simple, very elegant, machine age, clean. I love the way they stuck that one round over on this side to break up, each side. That design and that artistry and the skill. I'm so happy to show you these pieces because of the way they're constructed. Look at that undercarriage to construct all of those mountings by hand. Nothing is cast here. That's a labor of love. Every diamond mounting is made by hand, and then these wires are soldered together to hold that whole thing together. And what an incredible testament to artistry. That profile is even just stunning. So architectural. Looks like a building, as they put a building up, and then look at the finished good of how fantastic that is. So I love that for an Art Deco inspired design from the 50s. So let's get all the dog fur and all the dust out of the box, and we'll go into the three more important, or the most important of this video. And I have other ones to bring on for you. And this one's wrapped up. I forgot to unwrap this, but I do want to take a second and thank all of you for really investing in my channel, investing in me, and trusting me to bring you information that might help you out in the field. So the reason why I bring this on, I have wanted this brooch for, I'd been after this for probably about 18 years, and I had seen one in, let me zoom out just a little bit so we can get the whole thing in. Let's zoom out. There we go. So I had wanted one for a very long time, for a lifetime. And you can see why this is another classic example of why I say do not polish your items. This brooch would not be the same. Not even close if this was polished. Look at that lifelike expression and that peaceful nature of this incredible incredibly well sculpted face. I could talk about this brooch for up to, I would say, probably an hour by itself. This is French, and this is Art Deco. And it's a rare survivor because these simply, there were not very many that were produced and not very many that were made. When you go in here and you see the artist mark of ED, we now believe that that is Etienne David. That's who we now think that that is. In the book, they said Emile David. That's what they said for maker. And again, excuse my French because I didn't take French in school. But I I had a friend who lived in the UK for, I don't know, 2 years. And they came back and spelled everything like color. They spelled it with a U. And I'm like, just because you live there doesn't make you English. And the accent was just as terrible as the spelling. So anyways, I'm never going to pretend like I know, a foreign language. But Emile, we don't think so. We think that this is now Etienne. And I'll put that information in the description box, spelling and who we now as jewelry historians believe that this is. And I was helpful in doing that. And so was, I think, let me think here, who had sold an Etienne brooch as Etienne? Tadema Gallery. Let me think here. I'm thinking. I'm trying to. Sotheby's. And I believe Tadema Gallery. Tadema. I believe that's the gallery online. But I think Tadema Gallery also sold one and also correctly attributed it to Auntie Etienne. And I don't know if that was maybe just a typo in the book or I don't know. I'm not really exactly sure. All I'll say is I believe this to be by Etienne David, and a French producer, a sculptor, and a jeweler. His work, incredibly, painfully, very hard to find. This is the pendant version, and this is the brooch version, and this was never converted. So that was the brooch from start to finish. Very simple mechanism on the back, and again, the oxidation on the surface. So I let you look at that as a classic example of Art Deco jewelry. This is a piece that has been in my collection now for quite a few years, and this is something that will never leave my collection. I will enjoy that for the rest of my life. And it was very difficult to find. It was, I'll say this much. When you see like a needle in a haystack or very rare, why I show you this is the other pieces I showed you of Art Deco are great. I'm not taking anything away from the necklaces earlier, and when you look at like this necklace, let's look at these together. Let's look, and let's, a lot of times people can't, if I pull photos from offline, I can't put these two side by side, but see how much more commercial this is, and it's beautiful. I would sell this all day long, and it's beautiful for what it is. It's fabulous. It's a great piece of jewelry, but this is the investment grade. This is the commercial grade. This is the investment grade. And I guess that's where like my channel's just been different, since the start. Not better, not worse, just different. So this is all well and great. And I love it because if I didn't, why would I have bought it? But it's not something I would need to live with for the rest of my life. It's very wearable, it's very beautiful, but this tugs at my artist heart, and I don't know, I don't know how else to explain it. That's it, that's where I'm at. That's the farthest I can go with my human words, and I hope that makes sense. Commercial, mass-produced, beautiful, wonderful, fantastic, very sellable, very wearable. Investment grade, museum grade, what to look for in artistry and unique. If you find this at the thrift, please reach over this. Please reach over this. And you can still buy this, but please make sure you put that in your cart before anybody else. And let me show you just a few other examples of that kind of, I guess maybe I should say, let me get the book out of there. I should say like, oh, and that's another thing. I shouldn't say it this way, but I have quite a few pieces in my collection that are in books. And then everyone always throws around the term, book piece or this or that. That drives me nuts. I've always been driven crazy by that term. But I have quite a few things that were in books. So you can see side by side. All right. So let's scoot this out of here and let's leave this in. Every time I see this face, I just get so distracted by it in the best way possible. We'll scoot him or her this way. I believe it's a him. I always have. And we'll go with this Deco bracelet. And I had shown this in another video. And let's zoom out and let's move this. So let's zoom out a little bit. I always say zoom out and then I zoom in. I got it right today for the first time after 365 days. I finally got it right. So you know what you're looking at. You're looking at an Art Deco bracelet, and there's no denying that this is the height of Art Deco, and there's no denying that this is avant-garde, artisan-made, and not commercially produced. This is completely labored over. It is set in a nickel-based silver, and the mechanism is extraordinary. So that clicks in there, and we can put this together really quick. Let me back it out of here. There we go. And then it clicks in and then the safety goes down. So you can see that's all artisan made. That's completely hand constructed. I have yet to figure out who made the metal mounting. I'm not exactly sure because there are no hallmarks indicating this is from France. And these glass medallions have been correctly now attributed to René Lalique. And these are Lalique glass. I had now 3 expert opinions because the first 2 were kind of at each other over it, and then the last 3 have been like yes, yes, and yes. So they did consult I will say an old cataloging system for Lalique glass, and a medallion found very, very similar, like almost identical. And in my heart, I knew a long time ago that that would be Lalique glass in between these enameled panels to then separate this Art Deco bracelet. Again, you could get an Art Deco bracelet like this, and let's be clear and transparent on value, like the brooch here. I'll do this. I'm not going to make a comment on what I paid for this or what it's worth, but in that book, let me grab that back. In that book, and this book is very old. I think it was printed in. Let's see. I'll tell you. Let's not guess today. Let's take a look. And I guess I was in a panic. Oh yeah, 1997. Isn't that a long time ago? We're in 2024, and this is from 1997. The value code was C. And in books like this, they don't like to ruin the vibe, and they don't like to ruin the vibe on value, and that's what I've done on my channel as well. But if you go to code letter C, let's go in here. If you go to code letter C, then it was 2 to 5,000, and then it was 3,000 to 7,500. So that was value code C back when this book was produced, and that was value code C back then as a pendant. And you know, it's a parallel with a brooch. I will say that the value of most of the more artistic pieces has went up just because there's so few in the world. Of this brooch, I've only seen now a record of, let's see, let me make sure I tell you correctly, because there was one, I believe, at maybe Treadway auction, and I think now I've seen 4 that have sold in the last, I think, 18 years. 15 years, 18 years, but I had watched them for a long time to find one. And like I said, I just couldn't. On this bracelet, you can buy an Art Deco bracelet today. You know, in this commercial line, you could buy a line bracelet with onyx and marcasite for around, you know, $165, maybe $225. If it's Theodore Foreigner, it's slightly higher. Maybe that's now between, I don't know, $600 and $800. And then when you get into an avant-garde bracelet that there's maybe only 1, 2, or 3 of in the world, you'd probably be in the vicinity of, and I'll give you a loose auction estimate, they would say pre-auction estimate, you know, 2,000 to 3,000, and then when, you know, the auction is over and it goes for 15,000, nobody's really surprised. You know, everyone just kind of looks at it and go, yeah, that makes sense, because how many of them are there in the world? And the construction on this, it is on almost a fabric ribbon that is kind of collet or bezel set from behind, so fully articulated and very soft like fabric. The quality of these things, when you touch them, you know the quality of these pieces, but you would think, well, $10,000 to $15,000 is a lot of money for glass and nickel and enamel. That's a lot of money for that. But then when you think about it, a diamond, after all, is pressed carbon, and everyone spends, on a big one, $100,000, on a piece of pressed carbon. So it's all in proximity to artistry, the care that it took, the skill, the design sense. And as an artist, I just leave you with looking at that. Now, the grand finale for the video today, and I promised myself about 8 months ago that I wouldn't bring this on ever, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna bend my rules, and I'm gonna do it. And I want to see these two side by side because it's interesting to see the two of them together. And I take that back. I've only one other time seen the two of these together, and I open this up and I say, I'm just so honored and so grateful. So this is the most incredible Art Deco bracelet that is in my collection, and I have a lot of Art Deco jewelry. This gets me emotional. This came from the estate of Eleanor Donnelly in the city in which I lived at the time, and Eleanor was a woman of moderate means. She was a person who she was notable. People knew her because she was a fixture at like thrift stores and secondhand shops, and she was notable. She was someone that here everybody knew Eleanor. Everybody knew her. And when they had her estate sale, I went, and I had to be in the first grouping of people, and this is back in the day when people would line up at the sales and stay outside for hours on end. And I don't mean to drone on about a backstory of this, but I was in line for that sale, I believe at about 3 o'clock in the morning. The sale didn't start until 10, and I think I was there at 3:15, maybe at the latest, and it wasn't far from where I lived at the time. And I went to the house. It was a very small house, almost a single floor. It was the most interesting color green. I remember that because the color was so notable. Anyways, she lived of moderate means, and she lived a modest lifestyle, but boy, did she collect, and boy, did she found a way to find important things. And I bought other pieces at the sale that were fantastic, but this was one of the single best. And the person running the sale, I don't want to comment on the price that I paid for this, but it was extremely moderate. And this is, again, by now whom I consider to be Etienne David. And for Etienne's work, I have looked up Etienne's work as a Paris maker, and I've looked up the work, and I have yet to find anything like this at all. You'll see simple pendants, like single pendants, like maybe a single pendant of this or a single pendant of this, maybe sometimes with that enamel cap, but you can see that architectural, sculptural quality to this silver. And when you get into a silversmith that was able to produce such quality, look at the lifelike gesture in these faces, sculptural, almost in a way architectural, distilled down to the most simple of lines and forms. There's something very magical about this, what I've always considered like a Beauty and Beast themed necklace. Youth and elderly. I don't know what else to say besides this does take my breath away and makes it very difficult for me to really talk much about it. I hope you understand the importance of this piece. There is this old extender that someone had added very beautifully, by the way, very beautifully early on, because the bracelet is a smaller size. I think normally that's about a 5.5-inch wrist. Maybe it was like a 6, and then that added about another inch. This is on ribbon. This is on its original ribbon. You can see that there's wear. You can see that someone did wear this. The only reason why I knew it was by Etienne is not only the way this is sculpted and these slides are made, but there is the backwards ED. Here are the very small French export marks for silver, and you can see that that ribbon is very, very old. I've only worn this once. And then I decided I just didn't want to wear it anymore. It's too important. Value, I'll say this much. This bracelet was appraised, I believe, in 2000. See, I'm going to draw a blank here because dates are really bad for me because they're numbers and my artist brain doesn't want to do it. I think it was appraised back then by a person who was the national, she was certified National Jewelry Appraisers, National Association of Jewelry Appraisers, NAJA certified, and I think it came back at about 35 to 45,000. I think if it went to an auction today, it would go for at least that, and it might go double that. I'm not exactly sure. But, you know, pre-auction estimates are a tricky thing. When you see something like this that you've never seen before, and that other places don't know about, it is museum grade. It brings collectors out, much like myself, that say price tag doesn't matter sometimes. You know, the rarity factor controls that. And I'll zoom in just a little bit more on that so you can see the detail and just take that in, absorb that, because I'm very surprised that I brought it on. But I'm glad that I did, and I'm so glad that you were all here to see it. And underneath this ribbon, these are signed underneath. So there are signatures underneath, and then there are the silver marks as well, right there at the edge, because when things are moved through different countries and imported to the States, they all need to be independently signed underneath. And there's the ED. It's a backwards E stuck to a D. So I hope this video was educational. I hope it was entertaining. I'll zoom back out just a little bit and let you take those two pieces in. And it's videos like this that really make me happy, because I get to see my collection being viewed by the world. And I guess that's part of what I have always wanted to do with my collection, is get it out there in the world so that you can all learn what to look for, to learn the hallmarks, the way things are constructed. So let this be my first course, if you will, on Art Deco jewelry. And I didn't want to stay with like commercially produced goods from my personal collection. I wanted to elevate that part of the collection, and it's taken me a long time. You know, it's not like I wound up with these two, after just a few years of collecting. It's taken me 28 years to get to this level. So I just encourage you all to get out there and look, take the chance on things. Again, hold them, touch them, feel their energy, and feel their love. And again, if something sticks out to you, it's probably for the right reason. So don't doubt your intuition, and go after works that are masterfully created. Enjoy the more wearable and commercial pieces that are quality, that are beautiful, and then put these away and keep them safe. And let's protect our history of not only jewelry, but life in general. So thank you so much for joining in. I hope this was a great video. I want to continue to do more like this. I was trying to get it down to 20 minutes, and here I am at 37 minutes. So take good care of yourselves. And you know how I end it, because it's 100% true. I love you because I do.